Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Milifortic M096. This watch is available from miliforticwatch.com for $139 US, which is €119. So firstly, let's look at the hard shell travel case that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in this grey hard shell travel case, and on the lid it's branded with the Milifortic text logo. I like the quality of the weave of the nylon fabric. I'll show you the interior. So inside we have two textured foam panels, and the watch sits in between them, and this does a good job of protecting the watch in shipping from any damage. In the underside of the lid we have an elasticated web pocket, and that houses the items I'll show you. So this is a good quality hard shell travel case, and Milifortic deserve credit here because they could have used the less expensive default option of a plastic or cardboard watch box, bearing in mind it's a low tier price point piece at only €119, but this hard shell travel case is aesthetically pleasing and it is good quality. With regards to the items that come with the piece, this is the branded microfiber polishing cloth. I always think it's a nice touch to get a branded microfiber polishing cloth, irrespective of the price point of a piece. And this is the plastic warranty card. We have the Milifortic text logo in silver. On the reverse, it's stamped with Milifortic Watch Company and also date of purchases filled in. I want to give due credit to Milifortic here. This is something I like about the brand. Milifortic are the sister brands of Baltony, and it's something that both Milifortic and Baltony do respectively. They do stamp the warranty cards and they do fill in the date of purchase to activate the 2-year international warranty. Also want to give due credit to Milifortic and the sister brand Baltony for having a 2-year international warranty in the low tier, because often low tier Chinese brands only cover their watches with a 12-month international warranty. To get 2 years of international warranty is excellent at this price point, and they deserve full credit for that. And lastly, one also gets this spring bar tool, and it's plastic bodied and it has two steel tips which are nickel plated, and as you can see we have a fine 2-prong fork at one end and we have a push pin at the other end with rubber caps, so good to get that included if you want to exchange the leather strap fitted to the head of the piece for an alternative. The only thing that's absent, and I'd like to see Milifortic include, is an owner's instruction manual with clear concise diagrams, instructions in English detailing the operation of the movement used, which is the Seiko Caliber NH38A automatic. But it's good to see the warranty card and good to see the branded microfiber polishing cloth and spring bar tool included at this price point. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, we have a 38.6mm case diameter. We have a lug-to-lug measurement of 46.2mm, a thickness of 11.8mm, and a lug width of 20mm. The genuine leather strap is matte black, contrasting white stitching near the spring bar end, and it tapers from 20mm at the lugs down to the buckle and tang. Solid 316L grade stainless steel buckle and tang, brush satin finish to the top side, underside and flanks, no sharp edges, no sharp corners, nice heavy gauge to the 316L grade stainless steel, and I'm pleased to see they haven't used the production cost cutting measure of a sterile buckle and tang. It is signed with the Milifortic text logo in the cursive capital text font, very aesthetically pleasing. The text logo matches the logo on the dial, so it's good to see that it's not sterile, it is signed. We have a double dome sapphire crystal with clear AR coating on the underside, and the clear anti-reflective coating does an outstanding job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the double dome sapphire crystal. Nice low profile to the dome, it almost looks flat, and this is good because it doesn't add 2mm of thickness to the head of the piece. This is still only 11.8, which is very impressive. 11.8 is the kind of thickness I would expect with a VH31 powered quartz piece, but this is NH38A powered, and of course that does add some thickness because it's a thicker caliber, and of course it does need adequate clearance between the case back and the rotor. So it's very good for an NH38A to have only 11.8, and bear in mind this doesn't have a flat sapphire crystal, this has a double dome sapphire crystal. Matte black dial. Now, to clarify, this piece is clearly an homage to the Sinn 556A RS. I previously reviewed a Sinn 556A which had a similar dial layout with the iconic Sinn 12, 9, 6 and 3 large Arabic numerals in the Flieger style. This is an homage to the RS version of the 556A, which has a contrasting red second hand, but other than that, the dial and the hands are very similar to the 556A, the standard version. The RS just has a red hand, that's the only difference. I like the symmetry of the dial with the absence of a date complication, large Arabic numerals, similar font to the Sinn 556A RS, large white minute ticks on the chapter ring, and printed indices are also large as per the Sinn 556A RS, which this is an homage to. Matte black dial is the correct choice because it does give it a tool watch aesthetic, or like a Flieger watch, rather than using a glossy enamel black dial, which would have been more shiny and reflective. I like the proportions of the handset. One can clearly differentiate between the shorter hour hand and the longer minute hand. The minute hand is long enough and wide enough; it extends all the way to the white minute ticks on the chapter ring. This is something I want to give due credit to Milifortic for, because often low-tier Chinese brands have a tendency to undersize the handsets. The hands are too short and also they are too slender, but these hands look correctly proportioned for the diameter of the dial and also the printed indices as well as the minute ticks on the chapter ring. The hour hand looks large enough in width and also length, and also the minute hand is long enough to extend to the minute ticks. Also, the second hand is correct because it's contrasting. It's black with a counterbalance end, but at the chapter ring end it's red. I think more brands should use red second hands with matte black dials because you can see the benefit. The legibility is excellent. It also adds interest to it rather than it just being a monochrome 556A Homage. This is good because the red does look like the RS, which it is an homage to, and it does add some interest to the monochrome dial and handsets, which are black. So correctly proportioned second hand because it extends all the way to the minute ticks, which it should do, and I really like it. The quality of the printing of the text on the dial is sharp, it's crisp, it's high definition. The Milifortic cursive text logo is in capitals, the font is legible, and it's very well balanced. What I like about this piece is, unlike many low-tier Chinese brands, they have a tendency to overbrand the dial with unnecessary text and specification. For example, they'll print automatic plus the water resistance rating, which is appropriate for a dive piece, but when it's a Flieger or alternatively a field watch, one doesn't need to see that it's 100 meter water resistant, for example. This is perfect because we simply have the Milifortic text logo at 12, and that's balanced by the automatic in capitals in Arial fonts at the 6 o'clock position. So just the right amount of information. Milifortic and automatic. It does visually look very similar to a Sinn 556A RS, which it is an homage to. Dial layout is good, quality of the printing is good, and the quality of the printing of the BGW9 for the Arabic numerals at 12, 9, 6 and 3, and the printed indices and printed white minute ticks on the chapter ring are all sharp, crisp, high definition. It's not blurry and the font isn't too thick. Everything about the dial execution is good, and it's a credit to Milifortic because we're looking at a low tier piece at €119 here, not a mid tier piece costing €500 plus. So dial legibility is good, AR coating works very well, and I like the matte black dial with the contrasting red second hand. The bezel is solid 316L grade stainless steel, flat profile to it, and it's circular brushed satin finished. Nice large chamfer to it, which deletes the sharp edge to the top edge of it, and I like the profiling of it. It's a low profile flat stainless steel bezel, and it allows the double dome sapphire crystal to project above it. The edge of the double dome sapphire crystal has a bevel which catches the light, and I really like the low dome of it, as I've detailed, because it doesn't add too much thickness. They've made the correct decision because often low-tier Chinese brands use boxed top hat crystals to give the piece a vintage aesthetic, rather like an acrylic crystal, Hesselite crystal or plexiglass crystal, which were used in the 1960s and 1970s, for example. They predated the use of sapphire crystal. But they've made the correct decision here by using a very low-domed double-domed sapphire crystal versus a thick and tall boxed top hat style crystal, which would have added 2mm plus of thickness. This is very flat and low profile despite being double-domed. So nice large bevel of this edge of the sapphire crystal projecting above the flat bezel does add interest and catch the light. The circular brushed satin finishing has a nice fine grained finish to it, which gives it a real tool watch aesthetic or a Flieger watch aesthetic. It visually does look like the finishing to the bezel on a Sinn 556A RS. Case is solid 316L grade stainless steel, nice curved profile to the lugs, nice crisp edges which mark the transition between the top of the lugs and the flanks, but they're not sharp. They've been deburred and chamfered very well. One detail I like about this piece, and I want to give due credit to Milifortic here, which is the sister brand of Baltony. They are finished to the same standard, but in between the lugs is finished to the same standard as the top of the lugs, the case back, the bezel and the flanks, because we have vertical brushed satin finishing. This is not a production cost-cutting measure. Often low-tier Chinese brands, in between the lugs, is an area that they will cut production costs in order to maximise profit margin per piece. But both Baltony and the sister brand Milifortic finish in between the lugs to the same standard as the bezel, case back and the flanks and the top of the lugs. You can see the quality of the vertical brush satin finishing. It's very fine grained, it's not rough, and this is more expensive to do. It increases production costs. One does see this on mid-tier pieces between the €500 and €5,000 price point, but it's rare to see in the low tier between €0 and €500 respectively. So it's €119. It's very impressive to see this quality of vertical brush satin finishing. They've done a very good job of it, and I like the luster of it. So I want to give due credit here because this finishing really is mid-tier level in between the lugs. Beautiful longitudinal brush satin finishing to the flanks. Nice curved undercut to the flanks, which means that the piece wraps around the wrist because it's got a compact lug-to-lug measurement of 46.2. So I like the curved profiling of the case. No sharp edges to the undercuts to the flanks, so it doesn't feel sharp, doesn't scratch the wrist. That's very good. Let's look at the crown in detail. So angular crown guards are correctly proportioned because the crown is partially recessed in the crown guards as per the Sinn 556A RS, which this is an homage to. Crown guard profiling looks exactly the same as a 556A and the 556A RS. Crown is correctly proportioned, solid 316L grade stainless steel, coin edge finished. It's got a domed cap to it. Now again, I want to give credit to Milifortic here because it's not a sterile crown. Again, often low tier Chinese brands use a production cost cutting measure of making the crown sterile and unsigned. This is signed with the MF for Milifortic cursive text logo, as you can see in capitals as per the cursive capital fonts used on the dial and also on the signed buckle and tang. So it's good to see an engraved signed screw down crown at this price point, €119. They could have used the production cost cutting measure of making it sterile, but they didn't. The quality of the engraving is high definition, crisp, it's sharp, but it doesn't feel rough. They've polished it very well. So brush satin finishing is good. Nice large chamfer which deletes the tip of the coin edge teeth. So it is grippy and tactile, correctly proportioned, but it doesn't stick too far proud of the angular crown guards. It does visually look the same proportions as a Sinn 556A, so it's excellent. Let's test the screw down crown execution. Silky smooth. Minimal number of turns required to fully unscrew it, and there's a perfect interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. Silky smooth. It's sublime screw down crown execution. So as this is powered by the Seiko NH38A automatic versus the 35A, there is no date wheel, there's no date complication, therefore that deletes the phantom date setting position. We only have one click on the crown, so when it's unscrewed we can now manually wind the caliber NH38A to its maximum 41-hour power reserve. Feels smooth. There's no discernible difference between the NH35A, the date version, and the NH38A, no date version respectively. They feel exactly the same to manually wind. They both have the same 24 joules. Feels smooth, and I really like it. The thing I like about the NH38A is it is a reliable, well-proven workhorse movement, and it feels smooth to manually wind. One can feel the tension in the mainspring gradually building up. Doesn't feel rough or gritty. It does feel pleasant to manually wind. So pulling it out to the first click position is the final click, and if you look at the contrasting red second hand, you can see it's now stopped dead, so therefore it's possible to set the time precisely to the second with a caliber NH38A. So we're now in the time setting position. Feels smooth both clockwise and anti-clockwise. Doesn't feel rough or gritty. Minimal friction to it, and it feels exactly the same clockwise and anti-clockwise. I like that there's minimal backplay. When you rotate the coin edge crown clockwise and anti-clockwise, you don't need to take up a lot of slack as per a Miyota 8000 series such as the 8215, which does have more slack. The NH38A and the NH35A, which it's based upon, has that nice minimal backplay, so it does feel nice and tight but doesn't have too much friction. It feels smooth, does feel good to set the time. Some backplay is necessary because if it didn't have some backplay in the meshing of the gearing, when you push back in the crown to restart the movement, that will cause the minute hand to jump out of position, but it's minimal, so it does feel very good. I like the feeling of it. Pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click, and that restarts the contrasting red second hand. It begins to sweep around at 3 Hz once again. So let's test screwing the crown back down. Instant thread pickup. There's a perfect interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. 100 meters and a screw down crown is strong specification. They could have used the production cost cutting measure in order to maximize profit margin per piece of just using a push pull crown with 50 meters or 100 meters, but a screw down crown with 100 meters is strong specification because this isn't a dive piece, it is a pilot's watch or Flieger watch in the style of the Sinn 556A RS, and that also has a screw down crown. So 100 meters is strong specification for a daily wear piece or a pilot's watch. Homage. I like it. Absolutely silky smooth, it's refined, doesn't feel rough or gritty, unscrews smoothly, screws back down smoothly, immediate pickups between the threads. It's an example to other low-tier Chinese brands of how to get screw-down crown execution correct. The build quality, quality control, tolerances, machining and finishing are stellar. Right, so let's look at the case back. Solid 316L grade stainless steel case back. It's a screw down case back providing an effective hermetic seal to 100 meters, which again is strong specification. They could have used the pressed on case back with 50 meters to cut production costs. 100 meters with a screw down case back is strong specification. Milled slots are deburred and chamfered very well, no sharp edges, and it's sterile. Now the benefit of it being sterile is it's concentric CNC lathe tool machined, which of course refracts the light. Very aesthetically pleasing, but it's a very flat case back, and Milifortic have done it correct here, because often with NH35A and NH38A powered pieces they have a tendency to have deep bubble back case backs, and the problem with that is it adds 2mm extra thickness to the head of the piece, and they therefore become 13+ mm thick. That diminishes the feel good factor and the comfort level, because it feels like wearing a thick slab of 316L grade stainless steel on the wrist. Milifortic have got it correct. It's very flat and low profile. It's rather like the flat stainless steel case back one would expect with a quartz powered piece powered by the Seiko VH31. But the NH38A is an automatic with a rotor, and therefore the case back does need some depth in order to clear the rotor, but you can see just how flat it is. Fantastic. Even with a double dome sapphire crystal and 100 meters of hermetic seal and a screw down case back, this is still only 11.8. I would expect this to be 13 plus with an NH38A and 100 meters with a double dome sapphire crystal. 11.8 is very impressive, and that's really due to the low profile dome of the double dome sapphire crystal and the flat profiling of the case back. This is a very good flat case back. Because it's sterile without an engraving, one could subjectively say, well, that's a cost-cutting measure. They could have engraved the Milifortic text logo or the MF emblem, but I'm not going to be critical of the lack of specification engraved and the lack of it being signed with the Milifortic emblem or text logo, because it's perfectly smooth and flat. So it's comfortable to wear for long periods of time, such as 8 to 12 hours per day, because this large diameter flat portion of the centre of it is very smooth and it doesn't feel sharp or rough as per an embossed or engraved case back. This sterile case back with a concentric CNC lathe tool machining is done to a very high standard. No sharp edges or burrs to the milled slots. It's very comfortable, so it's good. They could further enhance the leather strap by adding quick release spring bars. Now this uses standard spring bars and we don't have pierced lugs, there's no holes in the flanks. The problem with these kind of leather straps, which are very thick, is that it can be difficult to depress the strap in between the lugs in order to remove the spring bar, and sometimes you can slip the spring bar when trying to compress the strap and then scuff and scratch the lugs, but I use Kapton polymod tape to prevent this. But if they use quick release stainless steel spring bars versus standard ones, that would negate the need for a spring bar tool, and that would therefore negate the risk of scuffing and scratching the lugs. So they could update this strap to quick release spring bars, but in terms of quality of the strap, it's got a nice matte finish to it with a sheen. There are enough holes in it from a 6 to a maximum 8-inch wrist size. I like the contrasting white stitching to the end of it, and also the spring bar ends. It does add some interest, and it does look like an appropriate strap for a pilot's watch or Flieger. And of course this is an homage to the 556A RS. This leather strap is appropriate with a contrasting white stitching. It is a very thick strap, but the leather does feel surprisingly soft and supple, so it's not going to require much wearing on a daily basis to break it in to make it feel soft and supple. It does taper down slightly in thickness. It's thicker at the spring bar end, gradually tapering down to the buckle and tang end, but it does feel nice and soft and supple, so it's a good quality leather strap. Let's look at the buckle and tang end. So 2 keepers, one slides, one's fixed. Nice contrasting white stitching. I like the gauge of the buckle and tang. Brush satin finishing has a beautiful luster to it, and the underside is perfectly smooth, has a nice grained finish to it, and it says on the other side genuine leather. So the only thing I'd like to see changed or updated is the use of quick release spring bars, but the quality of the strap is actually very good for a €119 price point piece. Very soft and supple, beautiful sheen to it, nice scent to the leather, and it's correctly proportioned, nice taper from 20 at the lugs down to the buckle and tang. Right, so I'll give you wrist shots and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now I'm pleased to report that this strap is surprisingly long enough for my 8-inch wrist. Often it's the case, you'll know this from my previous reviews, that straps on watches are a fraction too short. But I can confirm there are enough holes in this strap to fit a minimum 6-inch wrist size, and it's just long enough to engage the end of the strap in the two keepers, the first fixed keeper and the second sliding keeper, so this will easily fit a 6-inch wrist size minimum up to a maximum 8-inch wrist size. It's long enough even for large 8-inch wrists. Excellent. Plenty of holes in it, as you can see. Buckle and tang looks correctly proportioned. Nice, soft, supple, genuine leather strap. I like the matte tone of it. They've made the correct decision by not using a textured strap, or alternatively, the cost-cutting measure of a nylon NATO strap, for example. I like this genuine leather strap. It does look appropriate, and the white stitching complements the 1296 and 3 Arabic numerals as per the Sinn 556A RS, which this is an homage to. Proportions to the head of the piece are excellent. What I really like about it is the curved undercut to the flanks, because you can see the curved profiling to the tips of the lugs. There's minimal gap. This wraps around the wrist very well, even on my large 8-inch wrist. It will be particularly suitable if you have a 6 to 7-inch wrist, because it has a compact lug to lug of 46.2. So to clarify, 48mm is the perfect sweet spot for lug to lug measurement, regardless of whether you have a 6 to 7-inch wrist or a larger 7 to 8-inch wrist. So at 46.2, it's 1.8mm below the 48mm perfect sweet spot. But even on my large 8-inch wrist, 46.2 does work well. Wraps around the wrist well, doesn't have overhang on the tips of the lugs, minimal gap, doesn't sit on top of the wrist like a slab of thick 316L grade stainless steel. It really does wrap around the wrist. So 46.2 is compact but good. The thing I like about it above all else is it's only 11.8, even though it has a double dome sapphire crystal versus a flat sapphire crystal. Very low profile, and you can really see it and feel it. This does feel like an invisible piece because it only weighs 79 grams on this genuine leather strap. On a leather strap with a 38.6mm head of the piece, I would expect this to be circa 90 grams. So at 79 grams, it feels very similar to the heft one would expect with a quartz powered piece powered by the Seiko VH31. This is an automatic, which does add some heft to it because, of course, the NH38A is heavier than the VH31, but it still is only 79 grams. And it's 100 metres, not a 50 metre piece, with a screw down case back. And of course that does add some thickness to the case back, and it does add some heft to the piece. So very lightweight piece, feels invisible on wrist. Comfort level is 10 out of 10. Feel good factor is 10 out of 10. Legibility of the dial is fantastic. The contrasting red second hand is clearly legible. The large 1296 and 3 Arabic numerals are clearly legible. Large white minute ticks. This really is the perfect daily wear piece. It looks like a pilot's watch, looks like the 556RA RS, which it is an homage to. It's got that iconic Flieger style fonts for the 1296 and 3. And it really does look like a Flieger watch, but scaled down in proportion to a more wearable daily wear size of 38.6 versus being large like a 41 or 42mm. So low profile at 11.8. Also lacks heft because it's only 79 grams. And I think it's excellent. I think Milifortic have done a good job. Nice low profile to the double dome sapphire crystal rather than a very thick 2mm thick plus box top hat crystal. And the AR coating is outstanding. The clarity, the legibility is very good. When I tilt the piece at an oblique angle, the AR coating gives outstanding clarity. The legibility really is good. This is good quality AR coating on the underside of the sapphire crystal. It's not shiny and reflective. There isn't a lot of glare. Doesn't look like a mirror. The other thing I like about it is the low profile of the Rehaut. I'll just take it off wrist and show it to you close up. Often it's the case with low-tier Chinese brands. They make the Rehauts too deep. Now, the NH35A and the NH38A do have a tall hand stack height on the cannon pinion, so therefore it is a thick movement and it does have a tall hand stack height. It is necessary in order to provide enough clearance beneath the sapphire crystal, regardless of whether a brand uses a flat sapphire crystal, box top hat crystal or a double dome sapphire crystal. The tall hand stack height on the cannon pinion means clearance is needed, both on the NH35A and the NH38A respectively. So often what Chinese brands do is they have a very deep Rehaut, and we'll all be familiar with this. It's abhorrent. Now, this does not have a very deep Rehaut, even though it uses the NH38A. This is the kind of lower profile Rehaut I would expect with a quartz powered piece, powered by the Seiko VH31 for example. You can see it's not very deep. So to put it into perspective, it's not as deep as on a Pagani designed PD1661, which is NH35A powered. It's not as deep as a Steel Dive SD1953, which is also NH35A powered. So the NH38A has the same hand stack height as the 35A respectively, but you can see the depth of the Rehauts is surprisingly low profile. It's not as low profile as the Rehauts used by Suges, and that really is the very best I've seen for NH35A powered pieces. That's very slender, rather like a Rolex Rehaut, but the dial does sit surprisingly close to the underside of the sapphire crystal, and it's very good for an NH38. Not a very deep Rehaut, and therefore it's not shiny like a 360 degree mirror, and one doesn't get this 3D effect of the Rehauts. They've actually done a very good job of it. I'm surprised at how low profile it is. And the double dome sapphire crystal is low profile, so it looks close to the dial, and when you look at the piece straight on, the sapphire crystal looks invisible due to the AR coating and the low profile of it. So you're looking at the dial with perfect clarity, perfect legibility, and in terms of quality of AR coating and the legibility of it, it's very similar to the Sinn 556A, which I previously reviewed, and I think Milifortic have got it correct. They deserve credit for not making the Rehaut too thick, and for making the sapphire crystal very close to the handset, the Canon pinion and the dial. Benefit is legibility, it's good. Right, so let's do a Lume test, and we'll see how the Lume performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So, as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to the absolute peak. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, it has not disappointed. This is stellar performance. We're clearly looking at 5 to 6 layers of BGW9 on the printed minute ticks on the chapter ring, the printed indices, and the printed 12, 9, 6 and 3 Arabic numerals. Font is clearly legible, it's sharp and crisp and high definition, it's not thick and blurry. Good colour tone match. The blue matches on the handset to the dial, and the quality of the printing is good. I like that they have fully loomed the dial. Minute ticks on the chapter ring, printed indices, Arabic numerals, everything is loomed. No production cost cutting measures whatsoever. And one has to bear in mind, we're not looking at a mid-tier piece costing €500 to €5,000 here. This is a low-tier piece costing €119. This is stellar performance. I'm just going to charge it up once again to get the camera to focus on it again, because I want to just see the performance of the potency of the exciter when it's at its absolute maximum. Fantastic. Just look at the clarity. What I really like about this is the quality of the AR coating. It's reducing the glare and the reflective nature of the double dome sapphire crystal, but you're also seeing perfect clarity of the printing of the BGW9 on the minute ticks, the printed indices, the Arabic numerals and the handset. In daylight there's a perfect colour tone match between the dial and the hands. The white doesn't look more cream on the dial, doesn't look more cream on the hands, perfectly white in daylight, perfect blue colour tone match. 5 to 6 on the hands, 5 to 6 on the dial. That's €119. This is an example to other low-tier Chinese brands of how to get it correct. For example, they haven't used the production cost-cutting measure of 2 to 3 layers on the dial and 3 to 4 layers on the handset in order to maximise profit margin per piece. This is 5 to 6. And the blue tone of the BGW9 matches. It's fantastic at this price point. Right, so let's discuss the movement use, because it's one of my favourite aspects of the piece. So as I've detailed, this is powered by the Seiko NH38A. Seiko make the NH38A in 2 plants, in Japan and Malaysia respectively. Milifortic and the sister brand Baltony are using the Malaysian version. In terms of quality, build quality, quality control, materials and finishing, there is no discernible difference between the Japanese-made NH38A and the Malaysian NH38A respectively. The architecture of the 38A is based upon the NH35A. The only difference is Seiko delete the date wheel and date complication, and therefore that deletes the phantom date setting position. But other than that, the architecture of the 35A and 38A are identical. They both have 24 joules. It runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz, has hand winding and hacking, which use for complications, and as I've demonstrated, they work well. The benefit of it being a no-date version of the NH35A is there is no phantom date setting position, so only one click position on the crown, which is beneficial. 41-hour power reserve is perfectly acceptable. The stated accuracy of the NH38A is -20 to +40 seconds per day, so rather wide accuracy range. However, I'm pleased to report that Milifortic are doing a good job of regulating the NH38As they're using. This one is running consistently at +8 seconds per day. So to clarify, +8 is well within the stated -20 to +40 seconds per day, and it is acceptable for an NH38A. The +8 is when it's fully wound to its maximum 41 hours. So to clarify, When the movement is fully exhausted and the mainspring has fully unwound, 40 full clockwise turns on the crown is enough to fully wind it to its maximum 41 hours. +8 is acceptable. I'm not going to be critical of it. It's good enough for a daily wear piece. No negatives to the NH38A whatsoever. It's been in service since 2016. So at this stage in 2025, it's a reliable, well-proven workhorse movement made in Malaysia. I think it is the correct choice. For example, Milifortic could have used the production cost-cutting measure of using the Seiko VH31, which is less expensive, and that would have been a credible alternative to make this quartz powered. The benefit is that would have reduced it by 2mm of thickness, so they could have reduced it from 11.8 down to only 9.8 and used the same case back, same double dome sapphire crystal. But I think the NH38 is the correct choice at €119, because if this were powered by the quartz VH31, one would say, well, it's not excellent quality and excellent value because the quartz is less expensive than the automatic, the NH38A. The price point is justified by the use of the NH38A. If it were VH31 powered, I would expect it to be below €80 price point. But I think it's good. €119, NH38A is the right choice. And of course, it's good they didn't use the NH35A with a date complication, then it would have a phantom date setting position. It's good they made the correct choice of the 38A, so no phantom date setting position. So I'm going to declare it excellent quality and excellent value at €119. I'm going to declare it a champagne watch for lemonade money. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Milifortic M096. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.